Hey everybody, I'm Tony P. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Horizon 3. I'm here with Monty Canode and the attack team from Horizon 3 AI. And today we're going to be talking about the Sunburst attack. Right now it's going on, still going on. We're still getting information about it, and it's being labeled as one of the most prolific attacks to date. Monty, do you think that's true?
I do, just because of the sheer volume and of how many people use SolarWinds. It's a useful product, as you well know, and it's something that a lot of people have adapted into their own environments. And so it's interesting that some of their own metrics on how many people use them and how pervasive their software is was actually used against us in that attack. So
it was
I think it's
300,000 users.
Yeah, and 18,000 right now that they believe did the download, and there's a recorded future identified 200 that they believe were specifically targeted. So
let's for those who aren't tracking exactly what happened, let's talk through kind of what happened. The way I understand it, and you guys totally chime in and let me know where I'm wrong, and I know there's still stuff coming out about it, but FireEye found that they were breached. My understanding from what I have read, FireEye found the SolarWinds breach while they were checking their stuff. Is that true? That's what I got.
I think that's true.
So SolarWinds is a company who has a network monitoring management tool that's used in 300,000 companies, including the government. As of right now, I think we're tracking all 5 branches of the Department of Defense, Department of Energy, Department of Treasury. Was that the other one? Treasury Department.
Yeah, I believe you're right. Yeah, it's across.
Good news is on the DOE side, the reports that I read, it was only on the business side of the house. It wasn't like this thing was monitoring nukes, thank God. So that's the good news.
500 Fortune 500 companies.
What was it? How many?
425 of the 500 Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah, so it's huge, huge, and all across the globe. And the key thing about this is this software that everybody was using from SolarWinds monitors their environment. It's what provides them the visibility of their environment, which means it had to have credentialed access to all of the devices inside the environment, which is pretty scary. I've used SolarWinds. As a matter of fact, in my last organization, I was a SolarWinds and a network monitoring and a observability zealot. And a lot of people wanted to punch me because I wanted to monitor everything. But it's how you get visibility and understand what's going on in the environment. It's important to security. It's important to operations. It's important to track all those metrics. But with that, it becomes the sole source of understanding your environment, knowing what's going on inside the environment. And I knew it was scary. If SolarWinds was breached, it would be bad. Zach, if you had access to SolarWinds, from an attack perspective, that's like a golden ticket to everything, yeah?
Yeah, at that point, you pretty much have the keys to the kingdom. I mean, typically, a SolarWinds server isn't going to be network segregated at all, so it's going to be able to reach just about everything in the network just because it has to monitor it. And then most often it's going to be a high privileged account that's used on the server. So if you compromise the server, you're going to get a high privileged domain account. And from there, getting domain administrators relatively easy in most domains.
Yeah, super scary.
Yeah, and Tony, when we were doing like our audit at the last organization, we used SolarWinds, the agent on the box, to run all of our PowerShell commands remotely across the entire enterprise. So it was like a one-click automated script to check and own everything if you have access to SolarWinds. So there's really nothing that's as prolific in the expansion of the environment. Yep, and it's trusted. And
it's trusted. Here's the other key thing about this. I remember when I was running the SolarWinds servers, when we do the installs, the installation says, make sure that you whitelist the install directories for SolarWinds from your antivirus because it could cause performance issues. So even if Microsoft was putting stuff out for Defender and all of that. It's whitelisted, so it's not even gonna find it.
Yeah, and a lot of our products that we were using, we basically on the server side for the AV products, we completely cleared it. We just weren't looking at that directory. So you could be doing whatever you wanted in there.
The main issue is the credentials that are stored inside of SolarWinds. SolarWinds itself, as I understand, runs as network service. That's less of a problem, but the problem is that SolarWinds has access to all these other systems, and those credentials are in its SQL server. They're encrypted, but once you've got access to the box, you can decrypt all those credentials easily. And some of those credentials, depending on what kind of monitoring you're doing, are going to be local admin on those remote systems. Or if you're monitoring your domain controller, they could be domain admin. And so you've got a wide variety of credentials that you can play with in attack.
So Naveen, let me follow that up then with a question, and this will be open for anybody. Some of the fix action we're hearing now is about burn it all down. Do you believe that because of the credential access that it had, and perhaps domain credentialed access, is burn it down and starting from scratch the only option, or are there other ways to go about that recovery?
I'll take that. So this was a targeted attack. So it didn't automatically deploy and start doing a bunch of stuff. It was put into action based on manual intervention. So it reached up to a C2 site, someone was controlling it. So the key question is, did this just lie dormant in your system and not get activated, or was it activated? If it was activated, then there's a good chance that everything got compromised. So
yeah, but how did it communicate back to the C2? Wasn't it one communication from a host and that was it?
Yeah, what I've read is they set up VPS servers. They made sure to recycle the IPs on those, so it wouldn't reach out to the same one. It would stay dormant for 2 weeks to avoid AV sandboxing. So there are all sorts of techniques to make it really stealthy and hard to detect.
I thought the Stego stuff that they were doing was super cool, how they were hiding commands within responses, and I thought that was some really cool stuff, and super cool to see how FireEye actually reversed that to figure those things out. I think it was FireEye that did. Pretty sure it was FireEye that did it. Yeah, the burn it down thing. It's the problem with trusting now. Nobody is going to be trusted. It's going to be super difficult for companies to, even if it was a small company, even if it was a small company, how they have no idea, they don't have the money for forensics, they don't have the money for super deep digging in deep into what happened. They're not going to reverse any of their binaries. They just have to wait for all these other companies to push out, hey, you might want to check this. There was indications that this thing might have happened. But the point of breach for this particular attack leaves like everything up in the air. Like I have no idea what I should be looking for right now. And I think that would be super scary for organizations.
And for them small companies, what was their logging even like? How do you know they were even logging?
Yeah.
Do they have packet captures to go back in time and see if there was anything that reached out to the C2 servers? Probably not.
And you think about how expensive logging can be, like the resources that it takes for the amount of logging. And then when you talk about PCAPs and DNS queries, and I can't imagine having to
It sounds like a ground up rebuild to me.
And it's not even like a slow roll rebuild. You can't have anything old ever communicate or have the ability to communicate with anything new, because it's just going to likely spread into the new. You have to completely burn it and then build from scratch, segmented.
So Zach, if I can ask you a question, then we've seen a couple people put it out there talking about zero trust, and you've heard beyond core and zero trust. Is that now that we have an opportunity to build from scratch, that might be a good thing to do, but would zero trust have prevented this from transitioning from where the SolarWinds servers are at into your domain? Would that have been the kind of policy? I don't know how knowledgeable you are on it, or if there's somebody else who is, but now that that's becoming a thing, is that where we're going to prevent something like this in the future?
I guess I think zero trust is kind of a buzzword right now. And really, depending on what you mean by how you've implemented zero trust, there's like, are authorizations like one-time authorizations, or is there any enduring granted by a credential? So, I mean, once an attacker has compromised your domain, there are likely lots of enduring access credentials and tokens that they'll be able to access. And as soon as you tear down some of your infrastructure and bring it back up, they're likely going to have still some access based on your credentials and access tokens. So it's a really hard problem to solve if you can't burn it all down at once.
Is that assuming that they still have C2, or are you thinking that this is like wormable and it would likely just spread automatic? I find the second scenario a bit more hard to
Well, I mean, I think if you look at the CISA notice, they mention how you should likely rebuild your infrastructure if you've been compromised, and also to look at all your software and firmware in reflash from known goods, which means that they're hinting that this attacker has probably embedded themselves deep all over your network. So even your routers and things like that, you need to reflash, because what does a good attacker, an APT, do when they've realized they've been burned? They start pulling off the places where you can easily find them. So Windows domains, they're going to pull off Windows very quickly, and they're going to bury themselves in places that you don't have the capability to monitor deep. So they're going to go deep into the embedded Linux part of all your routers and all your different weird devices like printers. They're just going to live and sit there for a really long time until you think they're gone. And then they're just going to come out. And because they have your credentials from way long ago, they're just going to get right back in when you stop looking.
Why do you make me so scared? Like I'm gonna like erase everything that's on, like erase my keyboard over here.
Yeah, that's why we build from scratch every day.
Yeah, right, exactly. Can you imagine and I've been posted on LinkedIn, my like IT operations solar eclipse, throwing out good vibes to all the IT ops folks who have to like sort through this and make these changes. It would suck to be in IT ops right now.
You know what'll be
Did you
interesting,
really
Kanan? Oh, go
did
ahead.
you really say sun? Would you say sun eclipse? It's a little soon for a sunburst attack, right?
Operation Solar Eclipse. The sun. It's a sun.
Yeah.
Sunburst eclipse.
Yeah. I thought you said you were throwing out like a good eclipse, like good vibes to everybody.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of soon that you'd use eclipse with a sunburst attack. Seems kind of insensitive.
I mean, the right answer from a security perspective is to burn it all down, right? It's just not practical to do that how do you even go about doing that? I mean, you're gonna have to take down your entire company to do that.
But Naveen, if you burn it all down, how do you rebuild it right?
Code.
Yeah.
The cloud and infrastructure as a code.
Do you think everybody's going to switch over to the cloud now?
No,
That'd be a
because
good thing.
in the attack, one of the vectors they used to own your domain right after was VMware One, which is an identity manager application from VMware that integrates your on-prem domains with cloud services and domains. So they're in your cloud.
Yep. Yeah, they were targeting organization email, Office 365, all that stuff. So cloud doesn't really save you in this case.
So let's play the other side of it so that whoever's watching this isn't like,
It don't save you, but it would help you rebuild your infrastructure.
That's true.
Shaq.
for those who are like crying in their hands right now because hashtag 2020 sucks. What is the other side of this? I saw reports that it was targeted, meaning they were pushing out to everybody so that they could then get the ones that they wanted, right? I don't think Russia cares about, if it was Russia, blah, 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 all those pieces. I don't think Russia cares about every company that they got. It was probably focused on a few companies because they wanted either something specific or they wanted long-term espionage capabilities within these particular either government organizations. Most of the government organizations I wasn't overly concerned about because of the requirement for C2. So I wasn't super concerned about that, but if it was targeted, do these other companies seriously have to worry about it if their C2 was disrupted, if they've destroyed their SolarWinds server and they're at least rebuilding their SolarWinds infrastructure, and now they are changing all of those credentials? Is there hope or not lack of concern, a lowered concern for those companies who aren't, like, I don't want to say important, but weren't as part of the targeted attack?
No, I mean, you're still using the same product, and if the supply chain is still the same, isn't that how it originated?
Well, that's true. I didn't think about it from that angle. These companies were breached because of a supply chain attack. SolarWinds was breached. Do we think that there's still stuff going on in SolarWinds where they could just go right back in?
Yeah, is SolarWinds going to burn down their entire infrastructure and start from scratch?
I mean,
They need to.
the attacker was in deep in SolarWinds to be able to alter source code before build time. So at that point, you're severely compromised.
Yep. They're going to probably have to reflash all of their equipment, all their edge routers, everything, all their IoT.
It's a question of risk, right? I mean, even if you weren't on the target list, how do you know that the attacker didn't maintain some persistence in the environment? And there's not a good way to really know that. So you got to make a risk-based decision as to whether just rolling the credentials is enough or do you need to burn it all down?
I think I gotta hop off here and reflash all my Wi-Fi routers. I'll be right back.
Honestly, I'm thinking about just getting rid of Wi-Fi altogether. I will walk around with an Ethernet cable around the house. This is ridiculous. Honestly, that's why it makes what we're doing so easy to show value, because we are constantly finding things, and it's, we have a backlog of, 1,000 farms that we need to build and 1,000 attack vectors that we could build and put together. And I hate bullies, and I hate that we are always chasing the mouse. We can never get in front and become the mouse. It's shitty, and I don't like it. Why are there bad people? Stop being bad. Hey Travis, from a response standpoint, what are companies doing right now?
Sorry, Sylvie. I mean, a lot of them, I wager a lot of places, like places where I've worked, I talked to some of the guys and they're pulling all the SolarWinds stuff just to start. Like, it's getting taken offline, but, and then a lot of it going through checking credentials, checking if they have the logging. Like, a lot of the guys I know that work at some of the bigger places, they have logging. So they're trying to go through the logging and see what's being done. And, especially coming from a government perspective, those are things that they all expect, that they were heavily targeted in this, and the reason for this. So they're going through all those items to, see if there was any issues or any problems. And they're also kind of checking through, like whether it be Active Directory or other systems like that, to try and find credentials. You're doing some of that long tail analysis, stuff like that. Things that
looking
don't.
to see, were their credentials created? When was this created? Who created it?
Yep. When was it last used? Looking at ones that have, you know, been sparingly used for different things like that. So
I think the people accounts, human accounts, non-robot accounts, change them, change credentials, all that stuff. It's the robot accounts and the service accounts I think are going to be super painful.
especially because in a lot of places, whether it's right or wrong, they're not held to the same scrutiny or standards that the user accounts are. Because
No, you can't do MFA.
Yeah.
One of the things that I know that we had to do was in our logs, I did not want to see all the times that, you know, our robot account logged into a router because it was just doing its regular checks to collect information for metrics. So we just whitelisted that and didn't collect it at all because I don't need to see all that. Probably a really bad idea now.
yeah, we whitelisted a lot of things just to kind of clear up some of the noise, and now they're probably having to go revisit some of that and unwhitelist it. But that'll help you for things going forward to try and catch stuff. But for past stuff, you're kind of out of luck.
It goes back to the old saying, I'd rather have and not need than need and not have.
Yeah. But how do you pay for that? How do you pay for that? The company we used was expensive. Oh my God, expensive. And it wasn't just for the product itself. Yeah, the product was stupidly overpriced, but it was the hardware and the storage required to maintain all of that for any amount of time. And this breach has been going on since March. There were even indications that they were in SolarWinds in October of 2019. So for since March of this year, when people started downloading that software and installing it, 6 months of persistence. Like Zach, Naveed, like you guys, that's like having 6 months of persistence with credentialed access to a credentialed server that was not segmented. The jobs that they're talking about when SolarWinds runs, you kick off automation jobs to do things. That means going out and like spreading information, spreading out scans and doing all kinds of stuff in the environment, and then pulling back that information, aggregating it, and putting it into an SQL database. That's how SolarWinds works. That's what it does. People are connecting databases to it, to query databases. Like I wanted to get some specific information from a set of a service that had SQL on it. So we connected all of those SQL servers via a least privileged account, but still I had query access to almost 1,000 SQL servers. It was like SQLite within another piece of software. And I connected to all of those to collect metrics about how we were using that particular software. And I could track that over time and see when things would go down and things. So I had, like, it's going out, gathering all this information. You're creating all of this noise that an attacker can kind of lay inside of, that noise floor and just be underneath it with all the stuff that's going on in the environment. And 6 months of that time, when you just literally had the ability to go anywhere and do anything, is ridiculously scary. Yeah, I feel bad. It makes me feel bad.
And you know what's interesting, Tony, is that 6 months, look at this. We only had roughly 6% of people downloaded the updates. When you're talking 18,000 out of 300,000 plus, such a few percentage did. So how do you guys think that changes things going forward with updates? As well as, we were, several of us in here, we worked in government. I can tell you it was 6 month release cycles through an acquisition process that was painful as all get out. And so why was it that FireEye, because they are a high-end organization, why did they only install updates later and then they started seeing it? There's a lot of the story that we don't know, but now we're seeing that persistence because of people installing, not doing updates, and therefore you don't see the beaconing going out. So how do you think this changes things going forward? Are we going to be better, or after we burn it down, are we just going to do the same dang things and rebuild it back up?
That's a tough question because automated updates in general is a good security practice. And if you don't update, then you leave yourself vulnerable to the latest CVE or whatever is out there that can be exploited. On the other hand, if you do, then you've got this central point of control that can, just what happened to SolarWinds, right? The supply chain attack. So, I personally think having automated updates on is still a good thing as a general security practice, but it carries risks, and you've got to be aware of those.
I think a new standard may arise from this, like some sort of mutual trust between the update servers and the clients.
Right, but that still would have passed in this case.
Yep. There is no gold.
Yeah.
Right? There is no, I cannot see a way to have prevented this other than for all the 18,000 companies. Now for SolarWinds, I don't think it's still come out what happened at SolarWinds. And I know the SolarWinds 1, 2, 3 thing, but that was their, from what I read, and I dug a little deeper into it, that was their update server. It was an FTP capability that some guy had found a long time ago that they could write to it, which was bad. But that's how people were downloading some of the updates, was using SolarWinds 1, 2, 3 to download the update, right? There are some cases where for like mass delivery, having an easy password is there. It's like going to LinkedIn and seeing a web page that they wanted you to have that information easily, but it was an FTP source. How did they get on the inside of SolarWinds? How did they get code into SolarWinds code base? And how did they get the signing certs to sign it with their malware within it? How did that get through SolarWinds' development process? And there's a couple investments that some of the investment firms are going into that are in this space, which, to be quite honest, when I first saw them, I was like, well, that's kind of silly. Yeah, you do your normal code development stuff. And if you see something that's weird in there or not supposed to be in there, hey, who did this commit? Unless it was insider threat. Now that's a little bit different. I don't think there is any way to have prevented this until we find out what happened at SolarWinds.
We're seeing this with new currency that's being developed, whether it's Bitcoin or others. And I know at a previous command I worked where we started tracking logistics manifests with blockchain. And so if a company started using blockchain to start managing their software outputs, do you guys think that might have been a way to maintain the validation of a gold code and seeing any other binary put in at the beginning? Or would this have just been included in the original blockchain like this was?
So you're talking about Git commit messages on a ledger? A decentralized Git?
I'm talking about Git commit. I'm talking about.
I see what you're saying, though. But the problem is, it was in the source code. It would have been wrapped up as part of that chain. Yeah,
but the difference is that if Eric makes a change to that source code, it's wrapped in the block and then it becomes part of that new chain. If somebody else, even a legitimate one, would have been that they created in the SolarWinds backend, there might have been a way to track. So what I'm saying is we're going to see companies start to pivot. And companies are going to start touting zero trust. They're going to start touting blockchain. They're going to start touting lots of things, no different than our own company is looking at how do we show where we bring value to this type of situation to make sure that that does not happen again. What are some of those things that can do, or is this just you're pwned any which way you look at it.
And
Yeah, I
think,
mean, zero trust. I mean, it all starts with authentication credentials of some sort, right? I guarantee whoever compromised SolarWinds and inserted whatever code was using a valid account that was compromised. Regardless of zero trust or whatever, if you're using a valid account and doing stuff that looks legitimate, how do you track it? And we talk about it all the time, where the number one way we get access is by using legitimate accounts, and that's hard to detect, right? So, and that's why blockchain, all these things, if you get into that process early enough where you have a legitimate account, I mean, all bets are off at that point.
Yeah, I think one of the only things that would flag something is a solid UBA or user behavior analytics. Like
I think so.
seeing anomalies for different accounts that don't typically do it that often, that time of day, that kind of thing. Heuristics and anomalies are the only way you're going to catch that, probably. And it's been a buzzword for a while, or maybe not so much recently, but UBA was a thing that they were looking at, but it's expensive. You have to train it. Like, there's a lot to get that going, and it's really for super mature clients. Anybody can run SolarWinds, so they don't have the ability to even do like UBA analytics.
Has anybody seen that's a great point. And UBA, I think the theory and the concept of it is awesome. It is a validation or a check on zero trust, right? But has anybody seen a successful deployment? I've never seen a successful deployment.
In past consulting stuff, we'd always recommend it, because it actually would have detected our red team activities on the job, capture credentials from some site across the world. We use it at another place. Why is so-and-so logging in from across the world? They have no reason to be there. So we'd always recommend it, but I have not seen a solid deployment of it yet.
In this one, though, they even had some of the C2 going local to where some of the companies were. So
yeah, the IPs and the whole write-up on FireEye that they disclosed was really, really good about the credentials that they used. They never use the same credentials for remote access as they did for like some of the local accesses, same IP addresses in the country in which they're going into. So yeah, I mean, it's the highest level of like technical sophistication for APT level attacks. Some of that it's just not fair to play against those players. So they have tools that they spend money that, yeah, it's just ridiculous. It's not fair.
Eric, you brought up a good thing that I kind of wanted to touch on. That was there will probably be a standard that comes out of this. And Zach, you had posted that video from, what was that guy's name?
Like the CIO of Yahoo when they were breached, I think in 2019.
Yeah, he was talking about how the air crash board, what's that board called?
It's the National Transportation Safety Board.
How when there is one of these breaches, and I really liked that video. That was a really good video. Thank you for posting. When there is a crash, everybody has to learn from that particular crash. All of the bad details come out, all of the specific information, all the way back to the root cause of this person had a bad day on this day and didn't screw in the screw all the way on the airframe or something like that. Like, it goes all the way back, to that level of detail so that everybody learns about it. And you think about it, and the way he kind of explains it is, if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be able to go from, North Carolina, Raleigh-Durham Airport to San Francisco without everybody dying, because nobody learned from the mistakes and the failures of the past, where we don't do that with these breaches. Now, FireEye spent a lot of time and money to put together and put, effort into putting together that write-up, which was amazing. We still don't know what happened at SolarWinds yet, if we ever will get that level of understanding of what happened at SolarWinds. I think I completely agree with that guy that there should be some sort of standard as for these breaches when these happen, that there is a place where everybody goes to put those details, to learn from that, to gain information from it, so that vendors can make their stuff better, so that companies can learn how to protect themselves better, and penetration testers can understand how to leverage those attacks to validate that those things are being protected. What do you guys think?
I think it's a really good idea. That was the first time I had really heard about that suggestion for an official government organization to exist to force companies to do this, because one of the points he made was that at Yahoo, he had all this documentation and the investigators had all this documentation about the why of how they were breached, but they weren't allowed to share it with anybody because it was tied up in litigation. And then Yahoo just prevented it from ever being released because they didn't want it to make them look bad. So without a government organization forcing transparency, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, no, I like that. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I think it needs to be, it needs to happen regardless of what the company or whoever gets hacked. They need to share the how and the why.
And I
I'll
think
tell you when Merck and go ahead, Naveen.
I'm gonna say, I think there is movement from a government perspective in getting involved in this kind of stuff. I mean, recently, for instance, in California, we read about that legislation where they're banning default passwords for connected devices and stuff. So I think government is showing more willingness to get involved in this kind of stuff, and it's a good thing.
And I think this particular attack is going to make that even more, because I know that a lot of bosses and a lot of IT operators are just miserable right now, specifically in the government, because they're going, okay, where do we need to start? Everybody's using SolarWinds. We got to burn all this thing. We got to change all these credentials. We got to rebuild all these servers. We got to do all this stuff. And like Zach said, there's never a 100% knowing that you've cleaned it all. It's super frustrating.
And to roll crypto.
Yeah, on the topic, and this might be going outside of it, but like if you do implement some sort of board that you're required to report all these bad things, what about the second order effects for the business that was actually compromised, like Yahoo or SolarWinds? Like SolarWinds, from like a company moving forward perspective, that company is now ruined. If you release that stuff, I mean, they've already lost like 20% of their stock, shareholders are pulling out. That company is essentially ruined. Though the more bad news that comes out, it's like we've said, there's really nothing they could have done unless they can prove there was some sort of negligence, in securing it or something. But like, how does that play into it as well? Like where we just have no regard for whoever's at fault there, or does it not really matter? In this
Probably
grand
started
scheme of
with an email
things?
that said, click here for your
Right.
monthly bonus.
Seriously. Like,
But Kanan,
and-
you're talking about where the code was first developed inside their company. How did they get in before that and maintain that level of persistence? That pre-thing, that's what I think is going to lead to, when we're doing quarterly or even annual pen tests, that regulation is going to get to something a little bit more, where you're doing continuous kind of assessment, and there may be some regulation on that. But when we say they couldn't have done anything, what we don't know is if they had something like Eric even said, or some SMB share with the default password, or whatever that, if somebody had their LinkedIn login credential as a credential into their corporate network with their work from home that they were working on with their VPN right now. We don't know, but understanding and actually getting in and doing those assessments, that's the part that I think maybe the flash to bang, kind of, so to speak, that pre-flash, companies are going to have to take it maybe more seriously now.
For all the other companies, there was no preventing this. For the 18,000 companies, no preventing this. For SolarWinds, we still don't know yet what led to their breach on their side. At least I haven't seen any reports of it.
I agree that this particular breach was probably not something that could be prevented, but for those 18,000 companies and other companies, I think this is a risk that probably a lot of people were not even aware of, the supply chain risk. And what we do is continuous attack, right? So within a company environment, if you're modeling these risks and running tests continuously, then you can kind of figure out what is your level of risk. What I mean is, like, for instance, Netflix has got Chaos Monkey. Amazon recently released, this fault injection service. What if there was a model for that where internally companies were doing the same thing and using that as a way to identify what the big risks were in their environment? I mean, there's a huge blind spot in the first place for these companies to even be vulnerable to this. And this, I think, just surfaces it in a really good way.
That's money, bro.
That is money. That was the money shot, Naveen.
That was the money shot right there. That was it. Damn, Naveen is the man. That was good. I think we're gonna end it there. Yeah, man. That was good. That was good. I like it.
That was a great takeaway. That was the last question you had, Tony, and Naveen just skipped right over to here's the takeaway. That was pretty good, man.
Yeah, that was good. All right. Anything else do we want to like talk through anything? I think that was pretty good. I think there's a lot of content there to pull answers from and pull questions from, and we could use that however we want now. Anything else we wanted to talk through? No?
I love the debrief culture, Tony. That's something that at weapons school and everything, and then we would run a tactics Friday where we would bring up a situation and just break it down and get this kind of conversation going. Getting to hear this group go is powerful. So I appreciated this a lot. If you want to run these once in a while, that wouldn't be a bad thing. Learning from each other is good.
Yeah, I think we should, and we can even talk through, like, we should probably record these and have while the red team is like talking about, hey, when I was developing this farm, this is what I found, this is how I found it, this was my thought process through going through it. I think that would be cool to do. And then like, hey, it ran on its first stop and we found 65 of them and owned them. I think that would be cool. Yeah, I know these are kind of probably not fun. I don't particularly like doing them, but I think they'll be good. And we'll give the marketing guys shit to use. So cool. All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Hopefully we can call this thing fucking done. Kanan, what were you sending to me? You can't say stop.
When you said people need to stop being bad, like, dude, they're just doing nation state stuff. We do the same exact shit.
They're being good in their eyes.
Yeah, like they're really good at it.
We should probably stop recording this.
I mean, this isn't going to get included, but America, like, all countries do the same shit. Like, it's not. What was it? The Krebs guy from CISA, he said it was like an act of like negligence, and there needs to be some sort of like, it's like a nuclear arms like agreement. Like, hey, we're not going to shoot everybody. He's like, it was just bad taste to like go to this level just for intelligence gathering because of the repercussions of it. And yeah, that's true, but like every country does the same shit.
Right, but there is a line when it comes to, like, I'm assuming.
What's the line? Think about the
Is there a line? I don't think there's a line. The line is
from
win.
Microsoft, CDC, the federal government, like, they have all the intelligence they need at this point. They have access to whatever they want. Like, really, like trade secrets, nation state secrets, medical secrets. There's stuff about the vaccine that came into it, about like, because they were in the CDC. Like, there's a ton of stuff that goes into it. So, like, to say that they're being bad, I mean, it's what we do.
Okay, then follow up on that then, Kane. Well, yeah. Eric, you said that we need to get maybe a NTSB or something like that. Then there's got to be a line. When a plane goes down, that's the line that the NTSB kicks in, because there's a safety
Is it a line
issue.
though? I don't think it's a line.
It's not a line for nation states. It's a line for, if you've been breached, let's figure out why.
Yeah. Regardless of the.
I get to figure out why, but you're not going to stop people from doing it. Like, they're saying that the fact that they infiltrated at that level is reckless. Like, if you had the access, you do the same thing.
I
It
don't
just
call it
sucks they got
reckless. I
caught.
call that very motivated
Yep.
and intricate and patient.
Yeah,
It's operating at the highest level.
sure.
And it's just going to get more advanced.
Yeah.
It's
That
gonna
I
get built
that I
on.
100% agree with. It's only going to get worse from here.
Yeah. And if any other nation state said they wouldn't have done the same thing with that access, they're full of shit.
Dude, we're going to see the copycats now.
Oh,
Think
yeah.
about the other companies that have agents like this, like a Tenable. If
Yeah, I'd
this
be scared.
Tenable,
Splunk. I'd be scared.
fuck. Splunk.
Good thing we're
Nessus.
agentless.
Seriously.
But I want to see the flamingo farm so bad. That is going to be so awesome when we capture SSH creds from their IT monitoring tools and their Nessuses, and then use it against them.
That's money.
Yeah.
Even EDRs. I mean, even EDRs reach out. And if you think about CrowdStrike,
Oh yeah.
it's in the kernel. There ain't no monitoring that.
When you say EDRs reach out, what are you talking about?
They report back data. They beacon
They
out.
report
like-
back.
And MSPs
Like
have got their
solar is
EDR
normal.
solutions everywhere, man.
Yeah. And they're whitelisted. Full trust. Whatever the opposite of zero. 100% trust.
Full, What's the
Full
opposite of
trust.
zero?
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. And
You
you're
don't
right.
need to-
CrowdStrike is a rootkit. That's it.
Yeah. All
You don't need to do a supply chain attack when you are the supply chain.
Exactly.
Yep.
Risky for everyone.
There's a quote. There's another quote. End this thing now, Tony.